Hello everyone and welcome to this very special interview with me, Sam Lee, and my guest, Guy Shrubsole, on behalf of Friends of the Earth in collaboration with the Nest Collective as part of our digital online Netflix Campfire Club series. These are concerts online and in person that we are putting out over the month of August, and we're very pleased to have you. We've got music from Disraeli, Millicent Chapanda, Sam Amidon, Kajiali Kuyate, and many others, all to be found on the YouTube channel for the Nest Collective. And we're really pleased to be partnering these with Friends of the Earth to draw attention to their Double Tree Cover campaign. And no better guest to have on this series than an employee of Friends of the Earth, but also a writer, an activist and campaigner on behalf of land ownership and conservation. Guy, thanks very much for joining me.
Thanks very much, Sam. It's great to be here.
So one of the pleasures of my lockdown has been to pour into your book, or let your book pour over me, Who Owns England, which is a fascinating and somewhat terrifying text for somebody who likes to ramble and jump fences, and a really interesting insight into why England and our state of nature is such. A book I can't recommend more highly. Guy, I want to ask a soft first question as a nature lover. If you could please share with us the tree in this country that means the most to you.
Gosh, that's a very good question. I mean, I do love lots of trees. I love a good oak tree particularly, but I think probably I would say the trees that I basically helped save from the Newbury bypass, where I lived when I was growing up. I was about 10 years old when the Newbury bypass, this great big road, was built through 9 miles of countryside to one side of the town. It was part of a huge government road building programme at the time, and they put it through lots of special sites of scientific interest and nature reserves and places I used to go for walks as a kid. And particularly some woods at a place called Snelsmore Common, and another one at a place called Penwood. And I found some pine cones at one of these places. They probably weren't a particularly special tree. It's just a form of plantation woodland there. But it meant a lot to me to have saved these pine cones when I was a kid, and then we ended up planting them out. And one of them became our family Christmas tree for many years. And now they are planted out in my parents' garden. So they're growing into big, mature trees now.
Oh, amazing. So like a wonderful parable there for the work you do as saving, but also by saving also new seeds and shoots for the future. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about the state of woods and nature as you see it in England right now?
Yes, sure. So the UK has one of the lowest woodland covers in Europe. It's got 13% woodland cover in the UK. That compares to an EU average of 38%. So we're not doing very well. England is even worse. We're only 10% woodland cover here. And this is part of a history of deforestation in the British Isles. If you were to go back to the last ice age, you would find a landscape in which, post-glacial landscape, which had far more trees in it than we do today. There's some debate about whether a squirrel could really jump from branch to branch, from shore to shore, or whether there was a more mixed mosaic landscape at that time. But either way, there were many more trees in the landscape, and it was a much more beautiful place, I think, than we have it today. We're obviously not going to be able to completely restore that, but we certainly could be doing a lot better than we currently do with our very low levels of woodland cover. Other countries in Europe and around the world show that, and we hope to be able to do a lot more in future. It's clearly vital that we do more to restore woodlands, both for the nature that they support, the habitats they support, but also for the carbon they draw down out of the atmosphere that's clearly contributing to our rapidly changing climate.
I know your book is many hundreds of pages in going into the background to why we have the relationship with the land that we do, but I wondered if you could say how we've got to this point, and as briefly as possible, of such a fast rate of deforestation, yet also a country that has such a high level of devotion to our natural world.
Mm. Yeah, sure. I mean, certainly, I mean, it's worth just saying that in the UK, we have been reforesting over the last century. So since 1919, which is when the Forestry Commission was set up, there has actually been, in fact, a doubling of forest cover since then. We were even worse, even in an even worse state a century ago. But obviously, the quality of that woodland that's being created for some is certainly questionable. There's been a lot of plantation forestry created with monocultures of Sitka spruce and so on that is really not great for wildlife. And so, what we're talking about, what Friends of the Earth is talking about, is going further in terms of reforesting the landscape, but doing so in a way that is giving full throttle to things like natural regeneration of trees, more native species being allowed to regenerate and recuperate, and creating more habitats that serve wildlife as well as being useful, really good for soaking up carbon as well. I mean, I think though on the deforestation point, we clearly are still cutting down lots of trees, and we see that in everything from things like HS2 to new road programs and the loss of both ancient woodland, which is clearly irreplaceable within any kind of human lifespan. The definition of ancient woodland is that it's over 400 years old, and also in numerous development schemes. So we need to be stopping felling trees. We need to be protecting the precious and ancient valuable woodlands that we already have, the few fragments that remain. But we also do need to be going further, because we can look around the world and look at things like the horrors of what's going on in Bolsonaro's Brazil, with the Amazon being torched and felled at a faster rate. But we obviously do have to look at what we've done wrong ourselves as well. We have clearly deforested this country over many centuries, and just because it happened a long time ago doesn't make it right. So we need to be doing much more to repair some of that damage, as well as reduce our impact around the world.
Which leads on very much to this incredible campaign that Friends of the Earth are putting together, Double Tree Cover. Can you say a little bit about how that's happening, the landowners that you're working with and petitioning against as well?
Yeah, sure. So we launched this campaign a little over a year ago. The Friends of the Earth campaign to double tree cover in the UK. We've had a really great response to the first petition we put up. Had over 170,000 signatures now. I think that's petitioning the government, and in particular Lord Zach Goldsmith, who's the Forestry Minister in charge of forestry policy in England. We are currently getting encouraging supporters to submit their views to a consultation that the government's brought out on its draft England tree strategy. We think there's lots that's wrong and inadequate in this draft strategy, and that we need to see improved, such as a clear target to double tree cover. But as you mentioned, we're also trying to do work with large landowners. Some landowners are doing fantastic work already. The National Trust, for example, announced earlier this year as part of its 125th birthday celebrations that it would be increasing woodland cover on its own very large estate by a huge amount over the next decade. So that's really good, and that shows that there are fantastic landowners out there who are doing really good work. Unfortunately, they're not necessarily representative of the whole landowning picture. There are obviously many large landowners who own huge chunks of England and the rest of the UK, who we think perhaps could be doing some more. And so we're trying to work with them and encourage them to go further. And just the other day, we brought out a piece of research which we've been working on, which ranks the top 10 landowners in England by the area of woodland they each own. You might not be surprised that the Forestry Commission sits at the top of that, but at the bottom, what we discovered from our mapping and analysis was that the Duchy of Cornwall, Prince Charles's estate, has only 6% woodland cover over its 130,000 acres. And that the Church Commissioners, which is the investment arm of the Church of England, have just 3% woodland cover, and they own over 100,000 acres themselves. So, with these organisations, we've been working with some of them, trying to encourage them to go further. now we're sort of making this public plea and asking people to sign an open letter to them saying, we think you could do more. We'd love to work with you and help you find suitable land. But we're pretty sure that within those large estates that you own, you could do more. And clearly, it's incumbent on all large landowners who own such a large proportion of land in this country to be really stepping up when it comes to the climate and nature emergencies, because they obviously have a greater say in how we go about addressing this than most of us are able to.
That's really brilliant research, and it'd be interesting to see who else is on the list. Obviously, signing the petition is super important, but I wonder if there's other ways that you're encouraging supporters to make contact with the duchy, or maybe their clients, their buyers, and the church to encourage a rethinking of their environmental stewardship.
Absolutely. I mean, if you have any personal contacts as well, whether you have a hotline to Prince Charles or a local local church to speak to them. I should point out that the church commissioners are a slightly separate organisation within the Church of England. They're specifically the investment arm. So this isn't about churchyards or small parishes. It's about really big areas of land that is being invested in separately by the church. But I think there are lots of other ways that people could really usefully get involved with this campaign. So, for example, we've also been working to try and encourage councils, who are also landowners, as well as obviously having a big say over planning and other aspects of local policy, to double tree cover as well. And we've been excited to find that 10 of them have so far signed up in England to double tree cover in their local areas, which is brilliant. Some of them are also joining with us to call on central government to go further, to make more funding available for councils and other landowners to get in on the act as well. So if you want to contact your local councillor, we've got a tool on our website which enables you to do that really easily. Send them our briefing, which outlines how councils can start to make a difference and start to plan for how they double tree cover as well. So there's lots of ways to get involved. Planting trees yourself, of course, is also a great way to get involved. That's not quite something that you can do right at this moment. The tree planting season generally starts a bit later in the year, but certainly, getting involved by talking to your councillor or petitioning the government are two ways which we'd really encourage people to get involved right now.
And if coming up this winter you find yourself with lots of time on your hands and wanting to be outdoors and want to be doing some tree planting, how can the Double Tree Cover campaign help you fulfill that ambition?
Yes, well, last November, which is when National Tree Week is each year, we helped various local groups and community groups to plant trees by supplying some free trees. We're not sure whether we'll be able to do that this year. Obviously, coronavirus and lockdown restrictions are making it harder for, quite understandably, for any sort of mass gatherings in person. So it's probably not something we'll be able to do this year, but it's certainly something that we want to see encourage people to do in future when it's safe to do so. Other organisations obviously out there do lots of work on this as well. The Woodland Trust, for example, obviously fantastic in terms of providing free trees to people. Trees for Cities as well, and the Tree Council also do a lot. So we'd be directing people to get in touch with them about what their plans are for later this year and next year as well.
Brilliant. As they say, the second best time to plant a tree is today, and the first best time was 20 years ago.
Yes.
And maybe just lastly, it'd be really interesting to talk a little bit about the health benefits of trees, and particularly planting them, because obviously, it's like the way wood makes you warm 3 times. Planting trees makes you mentally healthier in several ways.
Yeah. Well, I've been reading a brilliant book by Lucy Jones called Losing Eden, which is out at the moment, and it's really good on talking about all of the different research that's been done, the science that it's really starting to kind of, I guess, confirm that what we've known in our hearts for a long time, which is that contact with nature is good for mind, body, and the soul, and it's true. It is genuinely got benefits in terms of, seems to have benefits in terms of reducing stress and benefiting the immune system, as well as just being obviously a wonderful thing to be able to immerse yourself in and reconnect with nature. And so, let's have more of it. Not just trees, all sorts of habitats, which are brilliant for that, but we need to see more of it. We need to revive many of the lost aspects of nature that we've lost from our lives through living in cities, having to be on screens a lot of the time, obviously, but also, through things like deforestation or the loss of habitat. We can do stuff to rewild and revive that in our landscape. And I hope that this campaign is just one part of that movement to do so in the future.
Great. Well, that's a brilliant note to end on. And Guy, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for your hard work and passion. And for all those new to Guy, your book, Who Owns England, is out in all good bookshops and is a great audio book as well, and highly recommended. Just very lastly, could you just relay important web links and social media so that people can quickly go and do the good work?
Absolutely. Well, if you go to friendsoftheearth.uk/trees, you'll be able to find out lots of information about our campaign and links to all of the actions and petitions that I mentioned earlier. So yes, please do connect there, and also obviously follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And
your handles personally are at?
If you really want to see my boring tweets, you can follow me at Guy Shrubsole, simply my name, all one word.
Great. Well, Guy, it's been an absolute joy chatting with you. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening. We've got some great music coming up later on, and we've also got more talks with some fabulous speakers, including author and conservationist Jonathan Drury, writer of the book Around the World in 80 Trees, and the amazing broadcaster, Radio 4 host, Radio 3 host, Verity Sharp, amongst others. So tune in for those coming up later on in the series. Guy, thanks for your time.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.